Welcome today, and this is the second edition of our FireSide Chat for 2025. We had the last edition last week on data analytics, and this week I'm joined by a team of experts for machine learning. So we're doing three fireside chats like this. The next one will be next Friday, same time, and it'll be about joining the cloud, that is starting your journey in the cloud. So I'll just go round and I'm going to go using my screen. So the first person, just introduce yourselves briefly. So Virginie, can you introduce yourself, please? And we'll just go around in that order.
Okay, so I am Virginie. I've started working in AI 22 years ago. So it's been a long time in AI, and I'm very happy to be here with you today. I'm working in France to help companies with AI strategy.
Thanks, Virginie. 22 years. Yeah, that's lots of experience. So, Francesco, you're
Yeah.
next, please. Yeah, lots of experience, right? Yeah. Okay,
Hello,
Francesco.
everybody. Hello, everybody. Thanks a lot for having me, Cyril. So yeah, I'm Francesco. Nice meeting you all. I'm Italian, based in Brussels. I am a machine learning engineer at Bolt, a ride-hailing company, AWS Hero as well. And yeah, so for the moment, having a lot of fun with identity verification mainly.
Cool. That's cool. Anna, over to you now.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm Anna, a senior software engineer. I work in the AI space. Worked for a few years now. Started right after my master's with Amazon Alexa AI, and then just continued my exciting journey. And I live in Boston, Massachusetts.
Thanks, Anna. Brian, you're next.
Hey, everybody. I'm Brian Chasko. I am been involved in AI and machine learning. I posted on social media. I've kind of lost count, I guess, which is a good thing. Over a decade ago now, I kind of got into it from a sideways approach as an inventor, used it to solve a lot of business solutions out there in the real world, and became known in the Amazon Web Services community, particularly around using AI and spatial computing, like augmented reality. And really happy to be here representing the Borderplex community for AWS.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to the Borderflex community. Yeah, it's good you're here. So, Vivek, over to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Vivek from India. So I'm a VP of product in my startup called Nextem. So Nextem builds brain-computer interfacing. Like if I wanted to put it into simple words, we could just read the thoughts out of your brain. So that's super cool stuff that we built in our startup. Besides that, yeah, I'm a machine learning hero. Like over for 3-4 years. So I think I become a hero at the age of 21. So you could guess my age at the moment. I've done a lot of certifications. I've done a lot of research work around machine learning and AI. Started with hackathons, going to research, now building neurotech products. So, and also I've been also running my own AWS user group community called User Group Madurai, which is in south of India. And yeah, it's going pretty great. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much, Vivek. I know Francesco has spoken about being a hero, Virginie has spoken about being a hero, Vivek hero, Brian hero. I know that will be another question. Some people will say, how do I become a hero? That's another topic for another day, for another show, for another audience. Okay, so let's go straight to what we have today. So I would like to start with you, Virginie. 22 years. So can you share your journey of becoming an AI or ML engineer?
Well, it was not something I was thinking to do before. In fact, I was in a school, high school, doing computer science things, and I discovered that being an engineer in computer science was not my thing. And so I was just like, what will I do? And I discovered AI at that moment. So I've done a PhD on neural networks. And I was like, oh, I found something very interesting. I want to do that. There are no jobs in AI at that moment. It was really, really something very difficult. But I was like, never mind. I want to do that, even if it is not a real job, even if I will not do something real one day. I want to do that because it's very funny. And so I started like that. I was a teacher, and then I started working for companies 10 years ago, something like that, because before there was no really jobs in AI. And so right now it's the thing. You can see AI everywhere, and I'm very happy to do that. But it was something that I didn't, it was really random to discover AI at the beginning, in fact.
Okay, that's cool. I know 22 years in 2 minutes, summarizing it is not easy, but I understand in the beginning it was a bit difficult with the AI was not a household name, but now AI is everywhere. It's a bit different.
Yeah.
Francesco, I know you were there last panel and you started in as a data analyst or business analytics position and now machine learning. Can you tell us how you became a machine learning engineer? Like,
Yeah, sure. So I think like the interesting part about my journey is that I don't have any sort of background in computer science or anything like that. I'm a chemist originally, so I studied chemistry and then I worked in the aerospace industry for a couple of years. And then I got kind of bored. I don't know. I needed something different and I started studying on my own a little bit of computer science, then analytics, machine learning. Actually, I wanted to code a little bit more, so that's at the same time I really needed to. I mean, I wanted to learn Python, but I needed an actual application, so a real life application. So that's why I told myself, oh, this kind of machine learning thing like looks cool. So let's go and apply that. And that's how it started. So then I guess I got in the back door, which was like data analytics, which I keep repeating. I think like it's the best thing that ever happened to me because I managed like to kind of build that knowledge like from the ground up, from data instead of like starting from the fancy machine learning stuff, and got it from there. So I started like Amazon, and then it grew, and now, yeah, I'm a machine learning engineer at Bolt. But it was, yeah, started really literally from being chemist, then Python, then analytics, and then it was machine learning applied on top.
Okay, that's cool. So you have that trajectory of moving from data analyst position or business analytics
Yeah.
position to machine learning, and mostly out of curiosity from what I see. So Anna, or let me ask Brian, you two, you've been in the field for some time, right? What are major trends that are shaping AI, ML in 2025? That's what has been a kind of a brief evolution. Can we have a brief, insight on the evolution of AI and ML so far?
Sure. Well, I think the truth is, in terms of the mathematics that are going on under the hoods, AI and machine learning has barely changed from the 1950s. And so when we talk about trends, you need to think about, well, are you trying to solve a solution or are you trying to get a job? I think to Anna's point, a lot of times it's very hard to get a job in machine learning. But as a trend right now, if you focus on language solutions, I think these are skills you can teach yourself and that you can be very successful, like transforming a business with. For example, if maybe it's a government bureaucracy, you might be able to help them sort through, a warehouse of paperwork just through a simple search, natural language. So I think that's really the trend, combined with increased compute power and increased, I'd say, edge communication. So you're going to have the ability to do more and more in rural locations and like the energy sector to be able to apply AI. I'd like to say, given my background in spatial computing, that robotics and simulations will be a trend to follow this year. But I've been hearing that my whole lifetime. So to Anna's point of if you want to do something interesting, you can get into any of these trends. But if you want jobs, I think language models are the things to focus on this year.
Okay, so it's like web 3. That's always coming. Okay, so now Anna, how can experienced professionals pivot to AI or ML, let's say from other tech fields? Can you tell us how people can move to AI from other tech fields?
Yeah, that's a great question. Myself, having experience of wearing a few hats, Sort of the beginning of my career was language engineer, which is more on the side of like computational linguistics and artificial intelligence as a theory, I suppose is one way to describe it. And then also a data engineer for a few years. I think it's really a great place, if you want to pivot into more of machine learning or AI sort of application development. And it's really an asset because you have advantage. You have sort of a bit of a lag on some other folks. Because at the end of the day, if you develop an AI system, and if you sort of step back from your own tasks and look at the bigger picture, you still need to know a lot of things about, how to build resilient systems, how to deploy them, and the business logic around it, all of those things. So it's actually really great. But probably the best way to go about actually getting into this space as there's nothing better than hands-on experience and trying to learn things sort of on the job, along the way is probably the best option, really. That being said, something to keep in mind is that software engineering in general is one of those areas where you just have to keep learning all the time. I think probably what everybody would agree with that. It's just a place where you cannot, sort of rest on your laurels and be done. So constant learning, if you have any free time, laugh internally, but then also try to get involved in ML projects, maybe your workspace or in open source, and sort of learn on the job.
Okay, thanks, Anna, for that. Okay, Vivek, I have a question for you. So I am a young guy. I just came out of school and I'm excited about the whole AI ML engineering career. What do I do? I want to become an AI ML engineer. What do I do? Yeah.
Okay. So I think I could speak from how I transitioned or how I got grabbed into this AI field. So when I was the first year in my college, in my university, AI was already a buzzword in 2016, 2017. And what really made me to jump into the pace was figuring out the hackathons. So I just figured out there are a couple of hackathons which run some real-time problems, real-time challenges. I just went and started solving it. And initially it was very tough. But then seeing other people's approaches and solutions like Kaggle and everything sort of helped me to figure out, navigate a way. And that's the best way to do it. And you backtrack the learnings that you do, how you implemented it. And that's how you have a very good grasp of the concepts as well as the practical approach. And that's the best way you can actually start learning it. So you might be, as a beginner, you might be hearing a lot of jargon words at the moment, like LLMs and everything. Just go out there, pick out the challenge, try solving it, see how does do that, and backtrack it, and you implement some new features to it, and voila, you are really good at it. So that's the best way to do it, and I have been doing that so far, and it worked out pretty well.
Oh, thanks so much, Vivek. Yeah, I'm getting something, and I'm getting it from most of you. It's like you have to put in the work. There's lots of, I say, action personnel, personal action. I don't know if that's the translation. Action personnel. Virginie, is it correct? But there's lots of work you have to do, right? Now, I want to ask you, Virginie. So somebody wants to become an AI or ML engineer. What are some of the skills that the person would need to be looking at most of the time? I mean, you can't learn everything, but there are some things that the AI or ML engineer will need to at least know. Maybe not 100%, but at least no
you
more.
cannot learn everything because there is so many things to learn. And even I've been doing AI for 22 years, and I do not know a lot of things in AI because it's too big. So I think the main point is maybe to choose one specific domain of AI and to learn about this specific domain. Right now it is generative AI. There's a lot of things around generative AI, text generation, and so on. So maybe you can go in that direction, or you can work on images, or you can work and so on. You have to choose something because you will not be able to learn everything on every field of AI. And you have to know also a bit of simple machine learning to have the basics, and then you will be able to build on that on the direction that you want. So you will have to learn Python. I think it is the only language that we all use is Python. And maybe on top of that, you will be using C, C++, or things like that, but it's not the main one. You have to know SQL also, because it is very important to grab data. And so everything that you may have said last week on data analysis may apply also for AI or ML engineer, because I think it is something that you will need every day. So yeah, to be short, choose a domain, go in that domain, and learn the basics.
Okay, thanks. Francesco, I have a question for you. So, how important are personal projects, and also what kind of projects do you think can be interesting for employers if someone wants to build a portfolio of projects?
They are great, yeah. I mean, they're pretty important for sure, especially at the beginning. I guess at some point in your career, they're probably not as important as they were before, because you kind of build a name like in the domain, and your experience speaks for yourself. Even though like I strongly advocate for keeping, like if you have like spare time, like keeping you busy with something fancy, like in on the side, just to learn. But at the beginning, yeah, I think it's absolutely important. Like for me specifically, as coming from a domain which is completely outside of computer science, it was incredibly hard, like to crack it, because like people just don't listen to you. Whereas like, okay, I was a chemist. I mean, I'm a chemist, but I was a chemist in my previous life. Let's put it this way. And like folks during the interviews would tell me like, what exactly do you want? I mean, I think they got it wrong. Just go and apply in the pharmaceutical industry or something like that. So you have to prove that you're worth something, right? Something. So for sure, projects are important. I think that the actually even more important is to write about them. That's something that I also advocated for last week in the analytics FireSide Chat. It's so you can build, like like you go on Kaggle and you solve like the Titanic challenge, like it's the most basic thing in machine learning, and then you're like, okay, wait, shall I write about it? Should I explain to the world like how I solved it? And most people say, well, I mean, why would it do that? I mean, it's so simple, like who cares? That's wrong. Just go and create like a blog post somewhere. Just explain how you did like your analysis, you clean your data, you build like a simple classifier on top. This is gonna show your future employer that you can explain yourself, you can write, that you know the basics, that you know what you're talking about, and then you attach your code. So actually, more than the actual project itself, it's about writing about it. You're also going to learn. I mean, it happened to me in the past a lot of times that while writing, I realized that I got something wrong. Because it's only when you write something and you put it in words, then you realize, oh my God, this assumption is wrong. Like, this doesn't make sense. Like, so you get back and you actually correct it. So and also like for presentation skills. So I would say projects are really important. They are, especially at the beginning. Most important, write about them, publish them on social media, so that people get to know you. That's like actually also how you become a hero, I would say. A tangent, so that people get to know you, right? And so like, yeah, actually, oh well, this dude like knows a little bit about that. So yeah, there's only upside, right? There's literally no downside. I don't see any downside about that.
Okay, this sounds interesting. So we are building the blocks now. We've talked about SQL, Python, picking a domain, and now we're saying building projects, communication. You have Kaggle, which you already have projects that you can use to build fast enough. That's interesting. Now, we are all, most of us here, AWS heroes and also community builders. So I guess it means AWS or Google, GCP, or Azure must be important to become an ML engineer. Anna, do you agree? Do you think that it's a must? That how important, for example, is cloud knowledge to become the knowledge of cloud to become AI or ML engineer? How important is it? Is
Oh
it
yeah,
even
I
important?
would say, yeah, I would say that it's pretty important. And especially if you work in the AI space, ML AI space. A lot of development, from my experience at least, is done on the cloud infrastructure. First and foremost, just because of sometimes the amount or the type of the specialized compute that you need for certain tasks. And also some of other tailored services that most of the cloud providers offer. Things for tons and tons of training and online inference and deploying and monitoring the system's observability. So generally speaking, cloud skills are a must nowadays, in my experience and my opinion.
Okay, that's fine. So Brian, you've been in it for some time. You've been, but you didn't start in 1950, right? Yeah, but you've been in AI in ML for some time, right? So, is it must you always use the cloud every time? And what is your take? How do you think the cloud and ML merge?
Yeah,
Or
definitely not. I'd say if you can avoid using the cloud, as a matter of fact, if you can avoid using machine learning for your task, I would recommend doing it because, energy consumption, I think we all care about this thing. And certainly every business and person cares about their costs. And so that said, there's plenty of places where something like an image model to recognize a wildfire breaking out is going to be extremely cost effective versus the billions of dollars in damages you're going to have, if that breaks out. But that's an example where you could take a machine learning model and apply it locally. Now, to improve that, that's where the cloud comes in. So if you don't have the actual use case, take a beat, learn ML through a different way. But if you do have the use case and you'll know that because you'll have data, right? So again, with like the wildfire example, if you have data of wildfires, and you have a model, you can then start to improve that model by giving it maybe more data or training it a certain way. And that's really where the cloud becomes super efficient to flip that use case. And at that point, those computers are highly optimized for this type of work. And so you'll be able to do things infinitely cheaper than trying to raise $10 million to start a data center that will be obsolete in 6 months anyways.
okay, yeah. So we are building those blocks. We are getting there. Now, let's challenge ourselves a little bit. So Vivek, I'm starting with you because I know you're up to a challenge. So Gen AI versus traditional ML, or is it analytic AI? What do you have to say about them? It's like nothing else exists now that we have Gen AI.
Yeah, true. Yeah, the hype right now exists around Gen AI, but the actual groundwork for generative AI started 8 to 9 years back when GANs came into picture. So the research to the product consumer phase is too long. But I can't really say that the generative AI is going to be a long-lasting phase or period for AI. But of course, but the business do love it, so does people love it. So that's how things are going right now. Uh, but anyways, I'm a person who actually say that if you are starting with a use case, most of them really works very nicely with traditional machine learning approaches. So, like even Brian suggested that why you go ahead and put yourself into a cloud and trying out very expensive models. A lot of things could be solved very simple, and I think that's pretty much a lot of mistakes an aspiring machine learning engineers do at the moment as well. So when it comes to Naltech or generative AI or traditional approaches or deep learning approaches, start with simple, make an iterative process because you are a scientist here. So you have an experiment, you iterate, you develop on the solution and you make it much more better. So start simple, and most of the time simple really works for you. And that's something was one of my a secret recipe for my winning for my hackathons, because simple models, easy to do, easy to scale, easy to make inferences, and most of the time it works pretty awesome. And yeah, once you know that it doesn't work, you can still iterate even into deep learning, and so on. So when I say that you exhausted every single option, at least in the text domain, then go for generative AI. It might work for you. I think that's the best way. At least I feel it.
Thanks so much, and thanks for giving us your secret to win hackathons. I'm sure that's what we all will be using, and all of us will be winners. Nobody will lose, right? So, Francesco, what's your take on that? This topic, Gen AI versus traditional ML, or is it analytic AI? The battle, the winner, the conqueror. What do you think?
I think I think it's great. I love it. So I agree with Vivek that it depends on the use case, and so like you probably like shouldn't think about that first. But the it is truly transformational. Like let me give you an example of something that we shipped in what, like half a day of work. So basically, we needed a way to so we received images of cars, and like we needed a way of detecting the car manufacturer, the car model, the car color, and read the car plate. And from cars all over the world, right? So like meaning like from Malaysia to Azerbaijan to the US, and like the task is daunting. Yeah, like can you imagine like all the cars and like existing out there, you really cannot really make a lot of mistakes because like it's for compliance or regulatory, so it's a mess, and well, of course, like if I had like to build like a model, like a computer vision model, to cover all cars out there in the world. I'm not saying it's impossible because it is feasible, but it takes like a lot of time, a lot of data, very likely, right? And then annotations are going to be a problem. Like we are sending like the document like to the image like to GPT-4, and just like works out of the box, So like think about that. Like this is insane, So I'm now what you're gonna say is that, well, you're just like wrapping like your image into like around an API call, and I say yes, that's exactly what it is, right? But that's cool, It's we basically like sheep like value because that's actually at the end of the day what we're doing, So I have a problem, I need to solve the problem, like and I work for a company, and the company is for a for-profit company, so it cares about like the business, it cares about the value. So I need to make an impact as fast as possible, and the iterations need to be as fast as possible. So this is great. That's something that I wouldn't have been able like to do at all right? Like 1 year ago. Like I'm not talking about like 10 years, like 1 year ago, impossible. Like this was like literally wrapping because we have all the infra, all the serving infra, so we could deploy it quite fast. Like literally, half a day of work, it was up and running, and serving serving requests from all over the world. So this is insane to me, right? I agree that with pretty much probably like everybody in this room, and then with Vivek at least, that you should really think twice before going there, because there are a lot of challenges. Now I'm simplifying this, but then of course there are like lots of complexities with the timeouts and the latency is not always, but okay. But then like the just the massive improvements and simplification that they got from there, that in 3 hours it was up and running and serving like it's serving with high accuracy, because that's also like the problem. Like high accuracy was figuring out some bikes in India, from photos that nobody would ever think about, that would like imaginable, like how this could recognize those, and it works, right? So I'd say like it's transformational, and we must use it if it makes sense, because like the business impact is absolutely huge. At the same time, I agree that in some cases, linear regression like works great, and you should go for it. And like GBM like works fantastic, and you should go for it. But there are some cases which really, really are solvable in a very, very short amount of time by this kind of technology, and so we should leverage it.
Oh, thanks so much. Thanks. That's cool. So I think it just again depends on the use case. That's what we are saying here, and maybe having an understanding of the foundation, knowing the traditional ML models, and as well as knowing the Gen AI models, you might know when to use which tool for which specific purpose. I think that's what it boils down to. So I think we've spoken a lot about the technical stuffs, technical Python, SQL, cloud, things. So I'll just want to go around. I'll start with you, Virginie. Can you just tell me one soft skill that you think it's good to have? Let's enough for the technical skills. Then we'll just go around. Everybody would add on to what the other person said. Yeah. So a soft skill for a machine learning engineer or AI engineer.
I think the most important one is to be curious, just that, to ask questions, to try to understand, and to really want to understand what is behind the use case, what is behind the needs, what is behind the data. And so ask questions. If you don't ask questions, you will never be a good AI ML engineer.
Okay, so that's interesting. We talked about curiosity last fireside chat, right, Francesco? So becoming a data analyst or AI engineer, you need to be curious. Is that okay? Let me go to Anna. Nana, can you add something for soft skills necessary? Enough of the hard skills, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. You definitely have to have a nice set of both hard skills and soft skills as well. And I 100% agree with Virginie about the willingness and the ability to learn to, and just this curiosity and passion for the field. And the other big thing, in my opinion, is communication skills. The effective communication is really important, especially if you're working, if you don't think about, maybe open source projects or your own pet projects, whatnot, but in the business space, you will have to communicate with a pretty large audience. And in that audience, not everybody is going to be an AI expert. And the kinds of problems you're going to be working on are objectively complex and difficult. So you should be able to communicate, describe the premise, describe the solution effectively so that you get the message across, and you can communicate the value that your solution is bringing, for instance, in this kind of aspects. So I think communication skills are actually vital.
Okay, thanks. Brian, what do you think? Soft skill? Another soft skill?
I'm going to say humility. It comes to play in a lot of different ways. For one thing, you're going to probably need the help if you're trying to ship value, as they said. You're going to need help. You're going to need smarter people than you in the room, and you're going to need people you partner with, and you're going to need to always assume that your data is invalid and that your ideas and your presumptions are invalid and that your approaches and your data are biased, right? So to really solve things and keep improving them takes a lot of humility, and it takes a lot of collaboration, where you're going to need the help of, like, when I was in healthcare solutions, right? I needed the help of caregivers and nurses and patients and doctors, and all those people had very different needs from me in order for me to get the useful data from them that I needed. So humility would be my big one I would recommend.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Humility, knowing that your model can be biased, you might be dealing with the wrong data. Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah. And Vivek, you have some soft thing to add? Any other soft skill to add?
I think pretty much everyone covered it, but if I wanted to say, I would say being a team player, that would be the best skill that you could hold on as well, because you would deal with people, as Brian said, outside your organization, but also that also plays a vital role inside the organization when you have a research team and the development team and the product team wants to push to the goals as well. So being able to understand that nuances and being able to deliver it. And one more that really sort of played well for me is able to put down what all I've did so far. So basically document. So that documentation pretty much solve most of the communication issues, and thus makes me a better team player with the whole team, with the organization. So both of the skills work for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So we got these soft skills. We're talking about being able to ask questions, communicate more, at the same time have that humility and collaborate. So I want to stay with you, Vivek. Just ask somebody who doesn't know, how do AI or ML engineers typically collaborate with, let's say, data scientists, product managers, other members in around the same
Yeah.
umbrella?
So in that way, I would actually like to speak from my experience of working in a small scale startup, working on a very, very deep tech product and a unique research work. So in that case, the goals as well as everything is dependent on the business. And once we derive the business out of it, the product managers or the people who likes to put down what we need to build comes with a set of requirements or goals. And with that, comes the role of people to pick from it and start working behind from that. So, for example, ML engineers try to build the best model that we could give it for, and same as that, we have people who build the infrastructure for it, and people who like to. So, since we work with neurotech, we work with a lot of data from subjects and patients. So, a data scientist and a signal processing person who really understands the data and brings the insights out of it. So, the collaboration works in such way that a research team tries to innovate in the longer run. Machine learning and an engineering team tries to build short-term goals or deliverables that could meet the business goals, and an infrastructure person who makes it all happen in from the behind. So, and in a way, I have played the role of every single domain, whichever I mentioned so far, and pretty much the dynamics of it really changes. So, it's that that's how I sort of see it from my experience of working in a small scale startup.
Okay, thanks so much. So we got a lot. Now, my question to you, Virginie, are formal degrees or certifications necessary, or can someone who is self-taught succeed in this field?
Before, when I started, it was mandatory to have a certification or something. I have a PhD, so it was mandatory to learn AI to do that, because there was nothing on the internet, nothing available, no certification, no anything else. So I had to do a PhD to learn AI. But nowadays, it is not the case anymore. You can learn a lot of things because there is a lot of material about AI everywhere on the internet. You can find really, really good tutorials and things like that. You can do personal projects to learn things and so on. So yes, a certification is for the companies, maybe something that is interesting, but not mandatory. So you can go to a company saying, I've done that, and that, and showing a portfolio of your work, even if you have no school degrees on AI or no certification on AI, you can find companies who will hire you, but a certification may be a plus.
Okay, so Anna, what do you think about this certification, non-certification thing, education, non-formal education for AI or ML engineers?
Yeah, definitely. I've seen so many self-taught people and career switchers, being successful in the field. At least the past few years, the trend has been that you don't necessarily need to have like a formal given background or education. And just like Virginia was saying, there are so many resources out there nowadays, luckily, where you can pick up things by yourself. And I think one of the most important things that, for instance, people look out for during the interviews is something that could be described maybe as passion or motivation, really, because you can learn all those things all you want, but people want to make sure that you're not going to be like the talking head in the room. That you actually enjoy doing things, building things, trying out, different models and approaches. And, sometimes it can be really time consuming and a lot of iterations and a lot of experimentation. And that, nobody will have to kind of try and motivate you to do things like that you're going to be actually building things, creating things. So yeah, I don't think that formal education, college degrees is as important nowadays as it might have been maybe like a couple of decades ago.
Okay, so maybe with the availability of materials online and based on your dedication or passion, you can be able to do better. So I would like to ask, it, every day we get new launches, things keep changing. So how can someone keep pace, the fast pace of AI and ML advancements, Brian? How can we keep up with this pace
Yes, I
today?
mean,
Every
you
day
cannot.
there's a new model.
You cannot. I mean, I personally have probably deployed 40 different cloud services specifically for machine learning solutions in my career, like to production, right? And I'd say 20 of those are now completely obsolete. And you look at the pace of things today and they're just changing at this insane pace of, if you learn the hottest language model, there'll be a model that claims it has superiority coming along in like 3 weeks, and then that model will have to completely change in 6 months if you're on this Gen AI trend, right? So you cannot keep pace with them all. I think there's Hugging Face is an example of an open source place where you can dig in and get a better understanding of like how things develop from a back end perspective, so to speak. But that's okay. Again, it goes back to me recommending you have humility to understand at each moment that the things that got you here won't get you through, again, as Francesco said, shipping value on a solution today. So you need to take a fresh approach, take a beat at the things in front of you. You're gonna have to choose a lane, right? You're gonna have to get comfortable with Google's models or Amazon's ability to choose foundational models, or random forest models and how to apply those, right? You're going to have to choose something to apply first, right? And you're just going to have to deal with the fact that there might be something out there that's even better, but all you can do is experiment with the things in front of you and see kind of what works best. And again, don't be afraid to partner. For me in my machine learning journey, I was very fortunate that I was in industry, but I had partnerships in academia that really helped me understand things. And when I was hiring machine learning engineers, people might be surprised to know that I looked at psychologists, and people understood statistics way more than the technical skills you might associate. So that goes back to just having a foundational understanding of what you're trying to solve, what the data is. So if you're trying to get into being an AI ML engineer, not just think about that job title, but think about the type of problems in the world that you want to solve and how that interests you, and start looking at, so the National Football League in sports, people mention Kaggle. So I found Kaggle to be a waste of my time in terms of like furthering my career resume, but as a reference for me studying how people fell, older adults, how they were falling. National Football League data was actually extremely relevant, because when somebody gets tackled in football, they fall extremely hard, right? So just be curious about the things you're curious about, and you'll be surprised how they keep you and your skills relevant. And next thing you know, you'll actually be considered a leader.
Okay, that's interesting. Thanks so much. Vivek, same question. I would really want to know, how do we keep on top of our game?
Yeah, so read curated content, like get to know about what's happening at the moment. So, the communities are the best ways where you could easily obtain that information. And if you try to follow a couple of folks, you will get to know what's happening and what they are doing or what's really happening in the industry. So that's the best way to first collect your information. So you're already halfway through that, you know what's happening around. And when you wanted to adopt it, and that's where you have to take the next step. So as Brian said, take a stab at the new stuff which is going around, and it might really work for you as well. And what I do as well, I do a lot of readings on research papers that really help me out to understand what's been happening and what's the thought process. And if you go through a lot of research papers, it will really give you a roadmap that what is going to really happen next in this AI space or something, right? So that is how I stay updated with the information that I have. Do a couple of projects and see what I can do, and then I go ahead and uh, see what I could experiment and do it in my project as well as in my use cases as well as in my startup.
Yeah, Francesco, same question. How can we keep up with the
You really
speed?
can't. Yeah, I agree with everybody pretty much. Like you really can't. I think like the only solution here is to be. I mean, if you work solo, probably be part of a community, so that you just get like people like talking about stuff, and then you're like, oh wait, you can't like pick up a signal, or oh, there's like a couple of folks and talking about this new technology. Maybe I should try it. Or if you work like in a company and then you're a part of a team, at the end of the day, it's pretty much like the same effect. But like it's just being surrounded by curious people who are just looking around and find solutions. Like for instance, like give you like another like practical example. So we're trying like to build internally an LLM gateway. So it's basically like a wrapper, to be able like to ingest and requests from and I send actually API calls like to multiple LLM services and LLM like frameworks and providers, because like one is using Bedrock and another one is using OpenAI, and so it's a mess. Everybody has its own interface. And we're discussing, like 6 people in a room discussing what are the requirements and here and that, and then there was like one dude like raising his hand and said, hey, we could try light LLM. And I was like, what's that? And apparently I absolutely didn't know about it, right? So this is like an amazing open source technology, which is literally exactly what we needed, right? So now 6 people in a room, like talking for basically half an hour, and the solution was already there. Did we know? Like clearly we didn't, up until like there was like this person like raising his hand and said, okay, how about we try this out? So the answer is that you can't really know what's happening in the world. You just have to surround yourself with people like being curious enough like to look and to provide solutions. And now so we get it. We don't have like to invest like like 3 people time for 1 quarter like trying to build a solution which is already existing. Um, that's pretty much that's pretty much what I have to say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I saw there it's really a broad, yeah, it's really broad and fast. So Virginie, now I have a question for you. What are common mistakes that an aspiring ML engineer should avoid when starting out?
Oh, it's a difficult one. I think the one mistake I see a lot is people just working on generative AI without looking at the basics, without looking at machine learning. And I see more and more AI engineers that are only I've only learned about generative AI and LLM. And so for them, everything is LLM. But in some cases, it's working great, but it's not doing everything. And you have to know a bit more about what you can use to choose the right tool for the right use case. And so one mistake is to say, okay, today we are speaking about generative AI and LLM, so I will only learn about LLM. And after that, it's very difficult to find people knowing LLM, but not only LLM, that are not fresh expert from 6 months, knowing only ChatGPT, for example. You're not an AI engineer if you just know how to prompt ChatGPT. You have to know a bit more things and to open your mind on other things. And maybe it's seen as old, but it's still useful. So look at what is useful and not only on what is trendy.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. Anna, what do you think?
Oh, that's super interesting because I think my view on that is somewhat contrary to some of the things that Virginia was just saying. So I absolutely agree with the fact that, when you're studying out, you want to get your fundamentals down, right? But then when I'm sort of retrospecting on some of the feedback that I get from more junior folks, one of the patterns that I notice is people sometimes dispersing their attention too much over, a myriad of things. And I understand where they come from. I appreciate their struggle. Again, it's a great thing that we have so much information out there that, there's so many learning resources, but at the same time, that can also play a little bit against you, kind of get you a little bit confused in terms of, well, where do I start? Even for fundamentals, like what is considered fundamentals? For some folks, it can be a little bit difficult to sort of weed all that out. And then what some people end up doing is, they pick up, a bunch of programming languages that they want to learn. They learn a little bit of Python, but then also maybe C for optimizations. And then they hear that R is also great, or like Hype or something. And the same applies to frameworks and types of models. And so because of that, I think my recommendation would actually be, so after you as we said, get your fundamentals solid, try to maybe focus on a set of problems that you want to try and solve in maybe different ways, different types of models if we're talking about traditional ML, right? So kind of get a little bit more focused on some tasks or applications, and then you can, progress and expand your skill set if you need to.
Okay, thanks. That's interesting. Brian, do you have any advice, common mistakes aspiring ML engineers should avoid when they're starting out?
Yes, I mean, you have to be realistic with yourself about where you're at and what the opportunities are you're pursuing. You asked another question earlier about whether you needed a degree. And the truth is, there's a lot of jobs around machine learning that will just screen you out if you don't have a PhD. And so you probably, if you're trying to be a self-taught AI ML engineer, you probably don't want to go that way. On the other hand, if you have an actual problem in front of you that needs solving and you think you see a path to do it, my advice to you is don't spend a bunch of time doing courses and stuff. Just slam your way through it and try to solve that problem. It's the best way to learn. And, you could be in the shoes of, if you are not that person, you could be in the shoes of that PhD who's at a university, right? But you might find if you were in their shoes, they spend all their time doing theoretical research and just kind of stuck in a lab, where you might have the opportunity to change some lives in front of you with AI or ML solution, particularly as everybody has alluded to with how quickly the technology is coming online and becoming accessible. Maybe if we take the word engineer out of the question, my biggest fear around this space is the newest technology should be democratized, right? Like, I know my father, who's in his 80s, is using, Copilot to solve some like water supply problems, right? And so I would just really like to see that pick up and we make tools more and more accessible. So if you are, entering AI ML engineer, my biggest, thing to tell you to avoid when starting out is don't be snobby, right? Like, really think about the tools you're learning and how you can apply them to your real world around you and your friends, your family, your business, your mission, whatever it is.
Thanks so much. And that is the first piece of advice as we will be rounding up. It's a couple of minutes to the end. So if those watching, they have questions, you can always leave them in the chat. I know Anish is saying, nice to see you, Vivek. And we also got a hi from Nalini. So if you have any questions, you can leave them in the chat. For now, we got the first piece of advice from Brian. So we are going to go around and let everybody say, if you could give one piece of advice to someone aspiring to become an AI or ML engineer, what would that advice be? So Vivek, we're starting with you there.
Yeah, I think I would still stick with Brian over here because, that is something which I really resonate with. When I started out, yeah, I got my fundamentals pretty right with the help of good mentors and professors. But I quickly switched my gears to solving real-time problems. And how did I went down to solve real problems? Is by looking at hackathons who really wants to do some changes. And that gave me a gateway to look beyond the textbooks or look beyond your conventional machine learning projects that exist in courses or anywhere else and go out and solve it. But what really helped me there to progress a lot is that since when I try to solve something and I see people collaborating and solving much more better, I could backtrack and learn much more easy just because I have good fundamentals. And once I acquire a much more better skills of seeing how people approach the problem, that adds to my skill. And when I do the next problem or the next challenge, it makes me much more easier for me. And that's the iterative approaches which really took out. And so what I would say is, if I wanted to club everything into one single piece of advice, is that yeah, stay curious, go out and solve some real problems, but don't overwhelm yourself with the pace of new innovation that is keep coming out. But feel free to, just you're curious, feel free to take a stab at it and try something out. If it works, it's awesome, and you'll learn something really new and progress step by step. And it's not a one night's journey that you'll become a data scientist, right? And over a period of time, you become really great, and you really start enjoying the work that you do, not just around working with data, but really impacting the life that you see out there, as Brian says. I think he has much more use cases and stories that how he has done it, and pretty much you will start resonating that once you start the same journey.
Okay, that's cool. Thanks. Francesco, one last piece of advice to someone aspiring to become an AI engineer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
AI or ML. Mhm.
sure. Yeah. So I think like obsess over data, not over models. That's incredibly powerful. So like look at your data every single day, all the time, literally all the time. Look at where your model is making mistakes, because that's where the real insights are. You very likely have your data wrong, or your labels wrong. And then become a good software engineer also. That's something that is like, if you're a good software engineer, you can prototype much faster. So how do you do that? Join us in an open source project. Also, that helps a lot. It's daunting. It's really scary, but it's very helpful. So become a good software engineer. That helps with prototyping and speed, just the velocity of your iterations, and obsess over data.
Yeah, I think I'll need to create a quotes book. Quotes, be obsessed with the data, not the models. I need to start taking down these quotes. Yeah, yeah, Francesco Pochetti. Yeah, it has cool. So, I will have a question. So, before I get to you, Virginie and Anna. So Prasad is saying, "Hello, team and Cyril. I am a person from core automotive and mechanical background with 19 years of experience. I am a continuous learner, which I would like to jump into AI or ML. Is it late to start? Thank you. Anyone?
It's never too late. So the day it will be too late, it will when you will be dead. So you can start. Not a problem.
Okay. Yeah. So again,
Agreed.
just to summarize, starting it's what again? What's starting again? I'm like maybe came late or so, but what's starting again at that level and just start from something, if you need.
Right now, I think the main part for Srinagar is to find, like Francesco have said, to find the problem, or it was Vivek, I don't remember. Maybe both of them. Find the problem you want to solve in your industry, because you know a lot about automotive, mechanical, and things like that. So when you know a lot about a domain, it is the right place to start your journey to AI and to find something you cannot do with traditional classical software engineering in your domain, and to say, okay, if I cannot do it with software, maybe I will be able to do it with AI. And so starting from this point to learn the basics of machine learning to see if it can solve your problem or not. There are some very good courses on the internet, on Coursera, for example, and things like that. And then try something different or more difficult and go to neural networks or things like that. But start with something you know right now. So if you know about automotive, start with the automotive domain.
Okay, yeah, thanks. So we also got a thank you from Lowe there. And now I'll go to the advice, the next advice from you, Anna. So that one piece of advice to someone aspiring to become an AI or ML engineer. So what would that be?
Yeah, speaking of advice, I think folks have got it covered pretty well so far. And as a former data engineer, I just couldn't agree more with Francesco about data. And another piece of advice that I had in my mind that is maybe a little bit more non-conventional, I would say talk to more people and talk to people more, because this kind of work implies a lot of sort of heads down time working on something. But it's really important to reach out to other folks, to share your knowledge and to exchange ideas, to learn from them, to get feedback on your ideas, because you never know everything. And it's always nice to have another set of eyes go through your results, maybe your ideas, give you some feedback there, and network.
Okay, thanks so much. So, Virginie, can you give us your piece of advice now for someone who is aspiring to become an AI ML engineer?
Don't be alone when you're doing that. Try to find people doing the same thing than you, maybe trying to go to AI ML and go there together. It will be easier to do that with other people that you can find in communities or networking or in conferences or so on, because you will need maybe some help at one moment. And it's always useful to have friends on that journey or even after that. I often eat with some friends that were ex-colleagues, and we are speaking about what we are doing right now and learning from each other, even if we have started AI a long time ago. And so it's always useful to have people to speak with about that.
Okay, and I just talked about that quote. The quote, I need to be taking down quotes. So lower, Jenny said, be obsessed with the data. Definitely going to be doing this. So thanks so much for all your sharing your knowledge, the experience you've had. This is really rich. I wish I had things like this when I was starting my journey. I know you are all busy, your heroes, community builders. It's the beginning of the year. Technically, so many things we had to sacrifice to put this together. So I'm really, really very happy for your continuous support to the audience, the community. And I really tend to believe listen to the heroes is really what people should do, really listen. And I think that is what you are all doing, talking, and we are all listening. So thanks so much for your time. Thanks for all the sacrifice. Thanks for all the advice. Thanks for being available. Thanks for being you. Thanks for being always obliging and willing to help. So until next time, we can say bye, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thanks, everyone.
And the stream is ended. Bye-bye.
Bye, Cyril. Thanks a lot for organizing
Thanks,
this.
thanks, thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Virginie?